what we generally call as software. Okay, say some Python code or JavaScript code or your React code. Okay, so you deploy all of it, right? And they need to be running. Then there's one more important thing that we generally also do, which is called as configuration. So your API has to connect to database. So what is the connection parameter? So maybe it requires additional configurations. That is also equally important, right? So now these are the two pieces that go. So therefore, in every layer, and in our application right now, there are three main layers, three main kinds of components: database, API, front end. And each of the thing that goes inside that layer, it could be software or configuration, we need to ensure that the version of it is maintained well, and there is a automated way of deploying it. So you are doing the development. You make one column change. You add a new column. Okay, how will it reflect in the actual environment? So what Flyway does is, let's say for example, Shravanji is doing the change. So he will make the change in his local computer, and then he will push the change into GitHub. As soon as it pushes into GitHub, in GitHub, it will trigger some kind of a deployment pipeline, which will use this Flyway, and will put it to Postgres database on the cloud. And it also maintains what change happened, when it happened, who made the change. So it's called as version management. So that way, we'll be speaking like this going forward. What is our student made database version? We'll ask. And our DB team will say it is 1.1. Where? In dev environment. Okay. In production, it is 1.0. So like that, we'll be speaking. So which means that as soon as we look at the version number, we will know where is the latest, what is happening. And then suddenly somebody will come and say, there's a problem, there's a problem. We will ask two questions first. Which environment? They'll say, in dev environment. Okay. Which version, which layer, database layer, which version? So that way, they will be able to then go to that version, because as they start making changes, each one of you, as you start making changes, you will be deploying multiple versions. So in software, your software is the key asset that you're creating. You have spent a lot of time to come to that, whatever that one single comma, that single dot, you spend a lot of time to come to that. That is your asset. So that needs to be guarded. So these tools ensure that versioning, deployment are done properly. So this is main for database side. Similarly for API side, as soon as he does the change, he will push, and there are some CI/CD pipelines which will similarly push it to some container, Cloud Run container. Front end, Firebase. You go. No, let's.
Whenever we add a feature, it may so happen that we first add a feature in. Well, database will have some extra fields or whatever. So sometimes we may just have that fields, not use it. It will not affect the UI or API. So slowly you will update the API. The API is available, it is not used, it doesn't matter. UI can still work with the old version. So we have flexibility of gradually bringing the feature into the live.
So it's important that all of us understand this thinking process. Is this visible to people online? Is this visible to Anupamaji?
Camera
Ajitaji?
you have to bring the camera close to the.
And still it will come blur actually.
Well,
It will come up.
Huh? Ah, where is it?
Today's 5th April, no?
Even 5th today or
19th is our Delhi.
Huh?
19th is, we are already sending everybody come for our experiential workshop this camp.
even the such a good.
Okay, so we will be having 3 environments, which is available to any one of us on the cloud. In addition to that, now let's take, there are 3 teams, right?
Are you live
There
streaming?
is UI team,
Live streaming. Record.
there is platform team, there is our plugin team, LLM team, right? So these are our 3 broad distinct teams. Now in each team, there are people, working with their laptop, right? So now the development is happening in their local environments. So from this local environment, how do you move the changes and where you move to which environment? This is where the CI/CD pipeline comes into picture. Okay. Let's take a simple example. Let's say UI team. So they want to add some button. So they go and from maybe say bold, whatever, they have some magic of doing things. But ultimately, what do? Ultimately, whatever they do, all that change comes into one GitHub repo. GitHub repository, right? All this change comes there. What is the purpose of GitHub repo? It maintains all the version changes, V1, V1, V2, V3. So it is maintaining all changes. Any change that you are doing into your software or your configuration, all those changes are being maintained in GitHub repo. Okay. So now let's assume currently V3. Now, how the environments are going to look like? Why do we have 3 environments? What is the purpose of production? What is the purpose of UAT? What is the purpose of dev?
Full form of UAT.
User acceptance test. What do you feel is the purpose of prod?
So come to the user. Before that, we have to test it properly. Live. That is live.
This is where your actual students, parents, all the stakeholders who will be using any of your services will be using for production. What is the purpose of UAT?
We are testing before we send it for live. We are doing.
Yeah, this is where so now this team, the tech team, usually will be developing here. Plus this also usually is well within the controls of tech team. Okay, so the tech team's playground is there. A developer's playground is their own laptop. The tech team, maybe I want to deploy something. Oh, flight has landed, huh? Oh,
Sorry for the morning. I have Malika from Boston. She is working there and she is heading restructuring program for AI in their organization.
Oh, wow.
I told her our handful of AI warriors. Okay, they have done miracles. So this is our team. Maybe other two more people. They have done magic.
Some of them are here too.
Yeah. So Malika is figuring out. She has a huge team. Now AI is in fact will reduce the team size to collapse.
Oh.
So she is facing resistance and all those things. I told her the way to start is set up parallel team.
Yeah.
Employ five houses from India. I think the years. What is
Very, very nice to hear the story. It's very inspiring.
Okay, so this is going to be under our control, meaning the tech team's control. So this is where usually we can do a lot of
So
experiments
this is on the cloud. This
Yeah.
tab is on the cloud.
on the cloud. You have your own laptop where you'll be working. This is on the cloud. Okay, so this is where all your experiments you don't share with other team members. Like how the Davaji is saying, oh, I have my UI ready, and Javanti is saying, my APIs are ready. They need to talk to each other where here, right? So now let's look at we brought here three kinds of pieces: a database, some API, some UI, right? And whatever the LLMs and other things that we are doing is also going to be part of API layers and DB layers, right? But broadly speaking, you can think of it like these things. So same thing will be here. Same thing will be here. The difference is, for example, let's take the student main. The student main here, let's assume, is version 1. This may be version 1 plus something. Okay. So for example, 1.1. Here we may already be playing version 2. Yeah. So
And here is to say V1, V2, V3. So by the time we are talking on V3,
yeah.
you usually.
Yeah, so that's easier to kind of discuss. So if this is 1, this is 2, and this could be 3, right? And this could be 4,
Yeah, that could be even 4, yeah.
right? You may be already playing with 4. So this is what is going to be happening. Okay. Now, how do we manage all this complexity? Okay, what is where? Which one is the failure? Where are we having an issue? So all that will be confusing. And how do we? Okay, so here there is a change happening. And how do I make sure that it's not affecting other things? So this is where what we refer as the CI/CD pipeline comes into picture. So imagine this is conveyor belt. Okay. You all know conveyor belt, no? Which carry automatically. So imagine, whatever you are doing is a V4 packet that comes into your repo. That V4 packet goes here. Okay, automatically. How it goes, we'll worry next. It goes here. Where, depending upon which repo you're talking about, there will be multiple such packets. EB packet, API packet, US packet. They will go and sit wherever they need to sit. Now, in here, we have this artificial boundary. We can, in the conveyor, we can open this upon some condition. Okay, then only, it can go here. And to go here, similarly, you can have one more gating, some more conditions.
So CI/CD is used from dev to UAT, how you send from UAT and production. From dev,
No,
you open it to UAT. and
Actually, this is
the,
again before.
the pipe begins here.
Yeah.
See, all the way is this pipe.
Ah.
Can you
But
see
this
this
pipe
pipe?
is not touching dev. It's touching, yes.
It's touching.
Yes.
Going to pipe,
Pipe.
going to dev, going to UAT, go to production.
So it doesn't go from dev, it goes from this pipe only to UAT and production.
From
Oh,
dev
ah.
it comes out.
I mean, this is just to give you an example.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, imagine the pipe are
Yeah,
here.
what she's saying.
Yeah.
Even for pushing into the dev, you have some trigger.
Ah.
Some trigger at
See, all the
the
things that you are showing on here, same thing will be here. From here to here also there will be something.
There's
like
a
that.
trigger. So only when you push, it will go into dev.
From here to here there will be some trigger.
So first you are pushing into GitHub, from GitHub you are pushing into dev.
Yeah.
Ah,
And you can automate all this. You don't have to manually sit and say, you must send it to dev. So you can set up these triggers in such a way that as soon as you complete here and you say, okay, push it to GitHub, you can create this conveyor belt to automatically take and build and push.
Uh-huh.
Same thing can be done here also, but you want a greater control. So this is what is CI/CD. What does CI/CD stand for?
Integration continues.
Continuous integration, continuous deployment. What does it mean? Continuous integration. Your team is doing something, and the platform team is doing something, if they are not continuously talking to each other, they go this way, they go this way. So you need continuous integration. So this enables, they push, and then somebody says it is not working. So immediately signal is generated. Oh, it's not working, it's not integrating well. They have added some new field and the backend is failing. So like that, 100 issues will come up, no? Continuous integration. Because we all are working on different packets. But ultimately, it all has to come together as one solution, no? So therefore, continuous integration. What is continuous deployment then? Is depending upon the environment, it is getting deployed. They need to be integrated and they need to be deployed. So dev environment is deployed. Okay, how it is getting deployed to UAT to prod, right? So this is what is being referred as a CI/CD pipeline. Now to push changes to the database, you need Flyway. To push changes to this API side, we don't need a Flyway kind of a special thing. In GitHub, there are something called as GitHub workflow action. There, as soon as you push something, it can build your content and your packet.
Before we put into the API, we have somebody outside is some UI simulated, send some API, take a response, only then it will put it together. If it is the test page which are integrated in the CI/CD, then it won't push. It will say the tests are failed. So whenever for every pushing into the development and UI, there is some pre-development test. You push, deploy, and after deployed, whether the deployed version is working well or not on the cloud, there is some other test.
So deploy is a word that is used for any of those three.
Yeah,
Yeah, any of them.
any of this. So deploy, as the word itself indicates, deploy. It is deployed into this box. This box.
Deploy means it is available on cloud for some UI. For example, the database and API and the UI are available with a URL.
So what I thought was deploy is when we are building on bold.boom, after the thing is done, it says click on deploy. When we deploy, it goes to Netlify app or version.
Essentially,
That
that
is
is
what-
happening.
It's done automatically there. Here we are doing it manually.
Not manually.
But
We are also setting up our own pipeline. But here, we are in great control. Where, what goes, how it goes.
so there, when it is deployed, we are directly seeing the production part, right?
Not necessarily.
No.
We call it as
Because I'm
development
sharing the
also.
link with other people. See, this is my app. You can see that.
it's your, see, for example, you share with the Darshan. You can, it's all your thinking, how you want to create environments. You can have a single environment and use that for quick iterations. So it's all that. Yeah, but the way we will be operating, I'm showing this picture.
So Vijay, what is the Netlify app? That is a deployable environment, right?
Deployed environment. It is some machines somewhere in the cloud is running, like GCP or Shivji, cloud is pushing. So the same thing is happening there. Clear?
Amplify like now what we are using in the Google Cloud is Firebase. Same thing.
So for DB, you are using Fire.
And for UA
Flyway.
API, we are using
For
Cloud.
API, you are using something, and what are you using for UI?
Firebase.
This is Firebase.
So those see, this is going to be running in
Firebase.
Firebase.
API is running in Google Cloud Run.
This is all Cloud Run.
Database is in Cloud SQL.
This is Postgres Cloud SQL, right? Cloud SQL, right? These are the technologies, and other services are box. Think of them as, for the time being, boxes given by GCP. GCP has given us 3 boxes. One box they are calling this Cloud SQL, another box they are calling this Cloud Run, another box they are calling this Firebase. And they have given us the freedom to say, you put whatever it here in this box, and I will execute it. As long as each box, you cannot put whatever. You have to adhere to their rules. Here, you need to have a UI, here you need to have API, here you need to have all that is secondary. So think of them as box. If you put something in that box, what you will put? Whatever you have been creating as your software. If the software package goes into that, I'm going to ensure that it runs. This is a promise they are making to you. So that is what we do.
The same thing for UAT and production also.
Yeah, this runs.
Yeah.
This runs.
There are three sets of, there is only one set of URL. We'll have three sets of URL for three levels of this. So we'll go from development URL to a UAT URL to production
All three
URL.
URLs
Every
are
piece.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Production guys will use the final URL, production. The actual.
And as we go further, no, each one of you will be talking only about your boxes. So she'll be talking about, okay, did my thing go into my box for Firebase? They'll be talking about in here, there'll be some LLM box. Because this one now will contain many small boxes. Each is a microservice. You've been hearing the word called microservice, right? Student made microservice, teach made microservice, op made microservice. So like that, agent made microservice. So each one will be concerned about my own little box, right? But those boxes are part of this big thing. This big box contains these small boxes. The database also similarly. Student made database, so op made database, so on and so forth. Little boxes. Here also there are little boxes. Student made UI, op made UI. So like that, each of these big boxes contain some little boxes.
SLM itself, what they are supposing they are doing, that cannot have a separate box there.
SLM, okay, so now depends upon how we want to use that SLM. If let's say we want to use that SLM as integrated into our UI, that's a separate thing. Then we don't have to worry about deploying it into some API. But currently, for our production purpose, we don't have a SLM. We are going to be using Gemini or OpenAI.
Supposing we have
Two ways of dealing with it. One is you can deploy into a UI box. So it will just like how your browser runs your React code, so it makes
Yes.
so on and so forth. Like an SLM will be running inside your browser. That is one model. Another model is it will be wrapped around with an API. SLM at the end of the day, just like OpenAI is a thing that to which you send a JSON request, it will give you JSON response. So it will be wrapped as an API. So it will be deployed here in such a case. Right now, we are using Gemini or something else, which is outside of our control. And then talking via some API.
from here, they're talking to the third party.
Third party.
Yes, LLM, SLM.
Is it all making sense?
Yes, otherwise, this part of work was not going into the terminologies for not. Now it's.
People online, Anupamaji, Rajitaji, is it all making sense?
करनी जी is good.
Yeah.
करनी जी आपको समझ में आया?
हाँ सर.
Their part is
Whose part?
SLM will be.
SLM will be here.
One of the APIs.
Yeah.
Agent made
Think
API.
of them as inside these big boxes, there will be little boxes. So some little boxes they are responsible for. Like that.
Agent made MS microservice. It's a good name.
And you'll send it to everybody.
Okay, ji.
Anything with a picture and examples is very easy.
Easy to understand. Yeah.
That's why ChatGPT is now. Yeah, advertising it everywhere. Try this.
Okay, so we can you unpin this G? And do you want to stop recording or do you want to continue recording?
LLM. So we first.
Lastly, brothers.
Hey, is it audible? Anupama, Rajita?
करनी जी आपको कुछ सुनाई दे रहा है? खुशी जी जो बोल रही है?
Anisha.
आवाज आ रही है सर, लेकिन थोड़ी स्लो आ रही है.
Hours are it?
ब्रेकफास्ट नहीं कराया था इनको।
Yeah,
Hours are it?
yes, these
Can,
days,
can they see the screen also? Very fine. Can they see what?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. No, we can see. I don't.
can everybody see
Ah.
is the, yeah, these many days we were working on the various LLMs, SLMs and all. We were working with them locally. But now sir has told everything has to be automated. So he has told us to work with APIs for each of the task or each of the chunk of yeah. There are many chunks in the that we have to work with LLMs. So first one is to he has asked us to create 5 APIs so that the work becomes automated, not not any manual intervention. So first API is to upload any PDF. That will be our first API. And second one will be chunking of that PDF and adding into the vector database. So directly the LLM can't read the PDF on its own. So we need to chunk the PDF. The LLMs can't, read like us humans. So it requires some chunking, some indexing and all is required. So first we have to chunk and then that will be stored into a vector database. And the third API is,
Can you ask whether everybody understands what is the purpose of that step number 2?
yeah. Yes, the step number, sorry, the second API, why is it required is, see,
No, ask. Ask
Ah.
and here first.
why,
What is the understanding of why it is being done?
yeah. Has anybody idea of the second API, why we are doing it?
Can you explain, James, vector DB, how it works? There are two types of this one, right? One is which takes in everything and then another one which takes into chunks. If you put it as chunks, it will be easier for it to know, or if you know exactly which chunk it has to be.
Correct, but what is the purpose of?
It has to know, right?
The
You can't.
searching or the index something is very, very faster, I think. You do it in a chunk directly. Like that,
Yeah. See,
The question,
cat and
the
rat.
question is,
What is chunky?
why
Why
do you need to chunk it, right? So for example, what is the purpose of the document? And why are we even going through this step of, putting it into some vector database and then sending it to LLM? What is the reason for that?
No, but what was that?
There's the CAG and RAG.
Tag and
That
tag,
is
right. Oh, no,
that-
I don't remember the acronyms. But it was, one is it takes the whole thing. Okay, if you send one PDF, it goes to the whole thing. The other one, which you can take only bits of it and.
Word, sentence transformer and document.
Those things were there. So if you give us a big thing, it will have to go through the whole thing, which is if you do.
So for the time being, what I will prompt you is, do not worry about whether we send a part of it or whole of it. But what is the purpose? Why would you have to send your document content to LLM? Why are you sending this document content? You may be.
No, that railguards or something. I'm setting the boundaries for the, so that when I give a query, it won't go all over the place and I'll get the most relevant, end of the day, it has to come from my knowledge.
Yeah, so this is the most important thing that we need to understand. See, when LLM generates you give a prompt and LLM will generate some answer. Okay. Now, whether it is generating it within the boundary of whatever I need is not known, right? So how do you give the boundary? How do you set the boundary? Your knowledge base presented to the LLM as a context. See, what is the input for any LLM? Only the context, right? Whatever you're feeding in as an input, based on that it generates, right? So you can give the whole document or part of the document. That is the second step. But primary reason is that I want it to answer within the boundary. The primary reason. Okay, now comes the next question. Why do you need to chunk and put into something called as a vector database? Okay, you can submit the whole document as is to the LLM. Why would you chunk it? So that is one thing that I told, but think in a very general sense. Forget about those terminologies. Why would you want to chunk? Why not give the whole thing? Okay, processing, good. What else could be the reason? Why would you chunk? Why not give the whole content?
It will be very heavy for the LLM to process. It will take time to generate answers. If we chunk and give, it will be by indexing. It will be easier for it to just point out to the index and just retrieve the answer.
So it has to do with the processing speed. And what is generally referred in the LLM space as context window. See, the LLMs can only take so much in their context window. So, for example, LLMs are designed, and remember, these LLMs will be paying, and how you will be paying? How you will be paying? How are they measuring your payment? What is a token? You can roughly think of them as a word. Right? It is not necessarily always a word, but it is roughly equal to a word. So if your whole document is, say, imagine, is 20,000 words. For every query you are pushing 20,000 words. So you will be charged that much. Yes. So to make sure that it is giving the answer faster, there is a latency. Number one, you are not consuming more and more tokens. You want to give only relevant sections. Because there's a cost associated.
Search for a thing, has to go through all the channels.
That is where vector databases are optimized for such searches. At the end of the day, if let's say every time I push the whole content to LLM, and let's say if I on a given day I ask 100 questions, and let's assume 100 into say 100 tokens, 10,000 tokens I use, and 10,000 tokens is equivalent of say for example 100 rupee per day cost. Let's say a simple example. Versus same 100 questions, but using the vector, if am I able to do it in 50 rupees? Is that economic viewpoint you need to have when you're doing all this? See, at the end of the day, technical reasons are there, but you need to guide your decision also on the economic principles. Yeah. So when you are designing this, that's why I prompted you. What is the cost per API call? So your design has to take into consideration that. Okay. So that is what we are attempting. So in the second step, why we are using vector DB is because it is fast to retrieve given chunk. But at the end of the day, if it happens to be more than 100 rupee, if I simply submit all the document and get the same 100 questions answered, and with this approach, if it is going to become 100 plus rupee, then it is not a worthwhile approach. So that is what we need to keep in mind as we are doing this. Yeah. Please continue.
Yeah. And the third API is create phase index for the chunks. So what was happening is in the LLM, there was like when we were running the code, there was like every time indexing was happening, there was embeddings happening. So that there was no particular stored embeddings. Regularly it had to every time we run the code, embeddings took place. So sir told that has to be automated. So that is the third API we should be working on. And the fourth API. Embeddings means see, like the computer does not understand some manual language, our human language. So that has to be converted into a number. So those are embeddings.
Can you explore a little more on what is embedding and make a presentation next week? If I understand, what is embedding? cat. A bird called cat. What is cat? Is an animal. Is a pet. It meows. It has fur. It has so many colors. It has age. It has gender. So many aspects are related to cat. So, how is this computer able to move and understand what needs to come? What is the context I'm talking about? So, there are various dimensions of a cat that need to be represented in the computer, which the computer computes to generate the next word. At the end of the day, all our generation, what we call as the GPT, right? It is generating, right? How it is generating? There is some vector multiplication. Nothing but matrix multiplication that is happening. Lot of matrix calculations happening. That's why you need GPUs. Why GPU? Because some of these, all of these calculations can be parallelly done, and then they can be merged together to give an answer. That's why GPUs give you a faster answer. There's a lot of parallel calculations. Is it this? Is it this? No, drop this, arrive at this. So like that, millions of calculations are happening at the same time.
Each word is stored as a number in the.
So it will be nice to really understand that the clear concepts. So that's why I'm prompting them. Understand only about what is embedding. What is embedding? What is the purpose of it? Using some simple examples, you should be able to demonstrate. Okay, so if I'm representing a concept called cat sat on the mat. How does the embedding work for this simple concept? That mathematics, let all of us understand the basics of it. And then in GPT it's happening million-fold. Same fundamental concept, but it is happening at a much larger scale. That's all it is. Simple high school mathematics is happening there. What is that mathematics? How the concept is getting converted into a number is what we need to understand. That is embedding. At the end of the day, computer can only do computations. It doesn't understand cat. It is not at all understanding cat. It has a mathematical way of understanding cat and the relationship between cat and the mat. What is that? One of the clue to that answer, one of the key to that answer is embedding.
But the computer cat represents some number.
At the end of the day. Yes. And when it generates cat sat on the mat is also another number. So if, for example, simply to think about it conceptually, if cat is 7, if mat is 10, how should it identify? I have to generate 10. It could have generated 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 as the next number. Why the hell is it generating 10? Right? That's the magic that is happening inside the chip. That's the concept that we need to get to the bottom of. Once we get to the bottom of that, you will understand it is nothing but high school mathematics and some commonsensical approaches that have been brought together.
So is it all probability theory that's happening in the?
It's all probability. It's all probability. And what's the next number to generate? Why am I generating 10 versus 7.1 or 7.2 as the next number? That is what is the key. Therefore, we cannot rely on LLM. Because LLMs are always only guessing. You cannot rely on LLM. They are only guessing.
So we are giving a lot of context.
So we are ensuring that it's staying within a boundary. Then the chances of it creating a good guess is better. Much like any one of us, no? If I ask you questions in a single page of 5 sentences, the chances of us answering it correctly is much higher than in a 50-page document, no?
Price index, indexing part for a better search.
So phase is a search technique.
Which is a Facebook.
It's developer phase. For semantic search. See, because what is the kind of search we are doing? We are not doing is 1 is equal to 2 kind of a search. That's a numerical search, very easy for computers. But here, what are we doing? Is cat similar to dog? Kind of search is what we are doing. For example, if I give you 2 sentences, cat, Ruffy the cat sat on mat. Humpy the dog also sat on the mat. Okay, and then I have a third sentence. Biffy the kangaroo was jumping in the savannah. 3 sentences. Out of these 3 sentences, which sentences are very close meaning wise? First 2. How did you arrive at it? Huh?
Similar, yeah.
Semantic means what? Semantic means what? Meaning. Okay, so we are seeing the meaning. Cat sat on the mat. Dog sat on the mat. Sit on the mat. We are giving a higher weightage to sitting on the mat. What? 2 animals. Oh, they're close. We are not saying they're exactly the same, they're very close. Than kangaroo jumping in savannah. So semantically we said these 2 have a somewhat close. How do you do that in computer? Is this surface search? And there are many techniques, but this is one of the techniques, which seems to be giving the relatively good answer. Notice the choice of words, relatively good means probability. None of these are accurate. If the same question were to be asked to a human expert, he may answer it totally differently. Understand? So that's why when we are designing these AI systems, we cannot think of the AI as the expert. AI is not your expert. AI is your intern. Don't not to put down the intern, but what I mean by that is it is not yet sufficiently trained. You cannot expect an intern to make a change and directly release to production. Same is the case with your AI. And so we need to put a lot of guardrails in place. We need to monitor it clearly. Each step. See, what was the work that Shravanji and team are doing API development? No need to worry. As long as they validate and they give a certificate, no need to worry. But the content that comes out of your chat GPT, if our Darshanji and teachers are not validating, I will have no confidence.
But it's like this, 5 times when they try, it might give a accurate, but doesn't mean that 6 times will give a correct answer.
Because the very nature of the beast is to always guess.
But for daily internally we're struggling so much.
Yeah.
So imagine for children, whatever comes out, how it has to be.
Yeah.
To be accurate.
Yeah.
Human validation, human intervention is a must.
As of now. That's why the design techniques around AI systems are human in the loop. How do you bring experts into the loop? Without scaling their work so much that they become overwhelmed. See, so far how the systems were, human was the final authority for every decision. All the children's scores were presented and the teacher had to evaluate. Now, human in the loop, so different techniques will start emerging. How do I get the what is called as the any expert? They make a decision. How do they make a decision? You ask them. You ask, why did you do this decision? If the human is a logical person, they will explain step 1, step 2, step 3. If the human is a very creative person, they will say, I felt it in my heart, I felt it in my stomach, like that, and they'll give a vague answer. I had a feeling, right? How did I get this imagination? Oh, I was thinking and it came to me. Right? So like that, they'll give a vague answer. But the same question you ask AI, relatively mathematically oriented or logically oriented person, they will say, I did this, I did this, I did this, and that is how I got this, right? So this is called the, or how does an expert arrive at an answer? So you give an X-ray to a medical doctor. He will say, oh, you have a block. You ask, how did you get it? If you hear the answer, I felt it, you will be skeptical. What he will say, look here, look at this diagram. In this diagram, see this crack? So you see cracks everywhere. But how is this crack different from the other crack? Notice here, notice the width, notice the height, notice the depth, notice the color. So he will say something that you and I can also relate to. Oh, this is how he's making decision. But of course, to make the decision, he has done a lot of reading, right? He has read 12 years. And with all that training, he has now arrived at this expert way of making decision. So therefore, you need a expert like that to validate that, in the final authority. Yeah. So these AI systems have to be built therefore right now in conjunction. Some kind of a generation and some kind of a AI validation, human validation is still necessary.
It's no way other than this numbering, probability theory, guessing, but there was no other way that an AI would do it.
Because ultimately you're building it on a computer. In a computer only knows this thing. Because your fundamental machine is nothing but a fast processing machine, computation machine. It's all abstraction on the computation layer. Nothing, no other magic.
The LLMs should not be built or manufactured using any other technique at all. This was the only thing I was doing.
Because you're doing it on a computer, no? When you say, yeah, because at the heart of it, at the core of it, this guy can only do in CPU, that's all. Nothing else. This is not a sentient being to generate. Okay.
Yeah, the fourth API that is receiving query and return the
Twice.
it's a vector.
Can you open another tab and bring up the files and give a short explanation?
The chat GPT. Okay.
Yeah, ChatGPT.
You're not sharing your screen.
Yeah.
What you have understood so far about files?
So it's like Facebook AI similarity search. So what it will do, the chunks which we have extracted from the PDF, which we have created for the embedding purposes, no, it will store it as an index in the disk, and whenever a query is generated, what it will do, for example, cat, it will search every possible chunk where the cat word is situated, and it will show the top 3 similarity search, like cat is on sitting on the mat, cat is sitting on a tree, cat is doing this. So it will suggest you top 3. And if my query is why is cat sitting on the mat, then the chunk which is present, like why cat is sitting, why it is doing that. So it will respond with that answer, that the chunk which is present there, it will respond with that, oh, for this reason the cat is sitting. It will do the similarity search and it will give you the topmost similar content.
So this index is somehow based on how close it is to the query.
Yeah.
And that is where, we talked about different kinds of embeddings, right? Word embedding, sentence embedding,
And
paragraph or chunk embedding. So the similarity search is depending upon that embedding. If it is word embedding, it will do a kind of like a word similarity match. If it is sentence embedding, it will look for the sentence's semantic understanding to another sentence's semantic understanding, like how we look at one example. Similarly, at a paragraph level or whatever the chunk level. So therefore, it depends upon what kind of a chunking or what kind of an embedding you have done. There are different techniques of embedding. So all these affect the result output. See, because there are two things that Kushi said. One is search. Search is not giving you the why. Let's say you ask the question. You have a big paragraph. Let's say it's a story. It's the story of let's say example, Aladdin and the magic lamp. Okay, so you've given the story, and you ask a question: why did Aladdin go to the genie? Okay, why did he go to the genie? So it needs to infer from the sentences there. That's the reasoning. Face is not a reasoning engine. Face cannot do reasoning. If that reasoning is already embedded as part of the, let's say, the sentences there, okay, in one of the sentences it explains, then it can potentially pick that. Otherwise, face cannot do reasoning. Reasoning is another capability. Face is a search. Is the meaning of this sentence and the meaning of the other sentence similar? A why is more of a look at the way why question works. Aladdin was thrown out of the home, for example. Okay, he wanted to kill himself. He found a lamp. Let's say these are the 3 sentences. Why did Aladdin go to the genie? If you ask such a question, semantically these 3 cannot give you that answer. You know? That is where the reasoning part is. Reasoning is a kind of like a, you look at these 3 sentences and say, hey, how do I really recognize? Why did Aladdin go to the genie? From these 3 sentences, I cannot recognize. So what will you say as a human being? No, you've not given me enough information. That is essentially what your LLM has to say. I don't have enough context. But what LLM does is, because it has been trained on some other corpus of material. In some other corpus, somewhere, maybe Aladdin went to the genie because his mother asked him to go to the genie, for example. It can cook up that. That is what is hallucination, where it goes beyond the boundary of your knowledge base. Right? So all these are very fantastic things. As we go deeper, we will start appreciating. But that's what we need to start appreciating as we start into these things. Yeah. Clear? So search and reasoning are 2 different problem spaces. Search is similar to search is not reasoning. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is semantic search.
It's a semantic search. Meaning is the intent the same?
Yes. Not the word, but the intent.
Is the intent the same? Yeah.
And the 4th API is receive query and return top match. The previous thing we have discussed, the same thing.
So you have built an index of your sentences, and what the 4th one is supposed to do is, if you give a new sentence, Is there anything
Index.
closer to this?
Cement.
It is in search terms for these kind of things called as top K match. K can be any number. Top 3, top 5, top 1. Right? You can make it very close match by saying I want 100% match and only one answer. 2, okay, give me 5 within this threshold. Even if it is 80% match, give me that. So like that will be the play. Top K.
And the fifth API is LLM call and retrieve the answers. These are will be having various LLMs integrated into the API, and then accordingly it will be returning the answers.
Okay, now
Retrieving the answers.
why are we doing this step? Why is this fifth step important?
We have to feed the LLM with our chunks, like knowledge base. We have to feed
Correct.
it. And based on the knowledge base, only we have to retrieve that.
Correct, but what is that the LLM is doing? What is the value? You already have retrieved the chunk. Why can't you just show the chunk to the user?
What the user has to prompt something, right?
User-
Whatever you
User
can't
prompt is
just
already,
you can't just display all of the thing, all of the chunks like that, right?
so what is the value that LLM is adding?
It's like it's getting confined within the boundaries. Like you have to answer within this only.
True, that is also correct. But what is the transformation LLM is doing? Why do you need it? Okay, you retrieve the chunk. The chunk is relevant, you know, by your top K. Not give the 3 chunks.
The language capacity.
Please.
To answer,
Does it remember the user's previous?
no, your SLM. It is borrowing the language capacity from the
Yeah.
LLM.
Correct, but
Really?
what is it you're solving for? In the
Don't
fifth
have.
step, what are you solving? See, right now by the 4th step, you've retrieved the 3 chunks that are most closer to the answer. What is that you're doing in 5th step?
I thought actually the other ones for one is A and B. So it's called. Then I go and get the chunk.
So
Yes, your question is why are you not displaying all the answers?
Alala, my question is, Ashwini ji,
Oh.
in the
And
4th API,
No, fourth API for the fourth API, the prerequisite was there was a call from the user, right? That is LLM call or is
no,
it?
but I'm
4th is,
so in the chunk in 4th API, but
Ah,
now using the chunk, how to actually answer
make it
proper readable answer for the user.
and what the user, LLM, does it have all the users previous?
okay, see, this is your vector database, right? This is where all your chunks are. You know, all your chunks are. This is your LLM.
Instruction.
This is your chat interface, where the user has put a query. Okay, the user has put a query. Yeah. Imagine, you know, gravity content is, you know, in your vector database, right? All your gravity content is in the vector database, either through paragraph chunking, or sentence chunking, whatever, that we'll figure out. Now the question is submitted. Your student is asking, I didn't understand, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I didn't understand how acceleration due to gravity is a constant. Okay, I didn't understand that concept. Let's say that is what the student is asking. Now, up to the step number 4, what you have done, if you think about it, the before, what are the first thing? The first thing.
First is the.
First is, you know, how you have fed here.
Fed the PDF, how
You know,
to
your,
edit
your
chunks.
PDF. Come here. This is first. Right? What is the second thing?
Chunks, make it into chunks.
Chunks. Right? All that is already here. This is the second. What's the third?
Phase,
So,
No,
so phase is on this. No, what is that?
Phase,
create phase index for the chunk.
phase
Phase
index.
index.
That is also not here. Phase index is, you know, think of a phase index. Right? From the chunks, you are creating a phase index. This is step 3. All of this is even prior to user question coming in. Yeah, correct now. Okay, now comes the 4th step, which is where the user is
Receives
filing his
query.
question.
Receives query and returns the top key match.
Okay, now it says okay, these 3 are the top key matches. Top 3. Okay, that is what you have extracted your knowledge. What are the pieces of knowledge that you feel are relevant? Where is the goal for this guy?
Like how now ChatGPT asks, no, do you prefer the answer like this? Or do you prefer the answer like this?
No, but
That is its job, to see what the user actually wants, how he wants it.
Yes, Vijay, LLM is not doing anything.
That's what question is asking. Shall we shut up this?
so all we have to do is just create a vector embedding and extract and then show.
It remembers the user's preferences and all. No?
Where Amma? LLM, think of LLM as your husband. He doesn't remember anything.
Not remember.
He doesn't remember anything. When you go in front of him, then he opens his eyes.
The LLM is like it is a model which will understand what we are trying to tell, and it will like if we are not using LLM, then the whole chunk will be displayed. LLM will convert it into sentence which we will understand.
Or it take from that.
As a
The
image or a video or a
Big
audio or
size.
a particular presentation or a markup or a PDF or something, whatever we want, LLM is does the presentation part is what you are saying.
I think I got
It will
It's a- they
understand.
have a lot of data.
Hmm.
Many sentences.
Hmm.
Then it has to search which is a cat and mat. Cat is sitting on the mat. So the chunk will have cat was sitting on a tree. One more chunk will have a dog was sitting on a mat. So it has to go through those chunks, find out which chunk it is, which sentence it is, find the
That face index is doing now.
no yeah.
Faces is getting your pieces.
It got
Three-
already.
it got three
Now I
pieces.
got the
You
top
got
three.
three pieces.
That is where LLM starts is what you are saying.
Three pieces
yeah.
it got, but one is saying cat is sitting on a tree, one more is saying dog is sitting on the mat. You want cat sitting on the mat. It has to do that thing, no? Find
Oh,
out which
from
is
the top three, LLM is
to find out what is the best solution that you want.
Yeah, so what is the answer we are coming to?
what?
Now why do we need the 5th one? Or why do we need LLM in the picture? Do
It
we
has to
need
find
that?
the
now?
best match, it has to find the most approximate, that's what all that
So from that three, it will guess which one is correct and you.
So
answer. It has to form the answer.
see, if let's say the teacher asks you the question, same question is asked to you by the teacher, no? If your answer is page number 1, paragraph number 2, plus page number 3, paragraph number 7, page number 9, paragraph number 3. If you simply give that as an answer, what will your teacher say?
0.
So that's what I should go and refer to all these things.
That is not your answer, right? What is it you are doing? You also are doing the same thing. Now you're reading these 3 paragraphs. What is it you do?
I make a meaningful thing out of it.
Something that you call as meaningful, some kind of a structure that you create, no, is the value that LLM adds. Okay, so from a given set of chunks, it seems to that's the beauty, no? It doesn't really know what it is doing, but due to whatever the mathematical ingenuity and whatever the way the LLMs are implemented, it seems to mimic how humans would have done it. Okay, so that is what is being called as a generative capability. So from these 3 chunks, depending upon the context of the question, it seems to generate an answer which seems to mimic a human's answer.
Humans don't generate.
Now, for example, now that's what I
In
told
the sense of, see, you are generating always new answers from the corpus of information that you have. You don't always generate the same way.
Same database, I give to 3 people, I ask the question.
That's what
Each one will give me different way, different language, different tone, different emphasis.
no, the ChatGPT nowadays it's coming, no? You prefer this response.
That is
So
the
basically,
next level.
LLM is giving 2 responses in 2 different styles.
Different ways of doing it. Then you are verifying, okay, which one I like, which one I prefer. That's the next level. But the reason for the 5th step in the process is, okay, now I got these 3 chunks, but now I want to generate a relevant answer to the question. Because in these three chunks, I may also have some irrelevant information. I don't have to give that to the user. So the so-called reasoning based on, I take these
So
three
LLM
chunks,
does reasoning.
it doesn't do reasoning, it seems to exhibit reasoning equivalent behavior. Because of the whatever the
Mimicking
mimicking the mathematics, no? It seems to give it a reasoning kind of capacity. It is not true reasoning. What is true reasoning? True reasoning is, where totally unrelated concepts humans can connect, right? That so-called out of the box thinking, impossible. Because LLM can think only within the box. Meaning what? Whatever you fed, based on that only, it always generates. It cannot on its own think of something else. So in that sense, it is not a true creative capability. Reasoning has two angles: ability to create and understand the context and to give a appropriate response. So it is not a true creative agent.
It's creating immediately. When we check for plagiarism also, it doesn't show anything.
It mimics a creative capability, but not true in.
Yes.
Okay, maybe you can call it as, say for example, level 1 creative, kindergarten creative. Yes. If you call about an expert creative, it is not a human can come up with a totally new idea, totally different way of thinking altogether, right? As an example, I'll just give you an example. So this happened, no? There was our sir, what's his name? He gave that example, no? The riot that happened in our opening day. The elderly Achita sir, he gave one example, no? Which riot example he gave? He gave a riot example, no? He gave a riot example in the beginning. That the whole riot was created by social media.
The Bali that correct. No, not Bali, but some foreign place. They created a whole this one.
Yeah. Everything created by the AI.
How it happened?
Because if the LLM didn't understand the language, so they kept on training it with that.
It's like that simple. If
It's
you
not
go to Facebook or go to YouTube and start searching for Telugu movies, you'll only start seeing Telugu movies.
Yeah.
It'll never give you a Tamil movie. Why?
It knows your what your preferences are.
Because the way it is trained is it is trained to give you what you want, not what you need. So, for example, if somebody goes and searches, as an example, are these kind of people bad people? Then it will list all the content related to that. Then next time it knows that you are interested in such a topic, it feeds you more. If anybody, that's what we call left-leaning people, right-leaning people. Left-leaning people will have written their content in some way. Same important movie, left-leaning people will interpret one way. Same important movie, right-leaning people will interpret from another way. So now, which one will you be fed with? Depends upon what the machine guesses you as. So you are constantly being fed that way.
Yeah, our YouTube shorts, Insta reels, everything is based on my preferences.
So if there is no human in the loop to safeguard, if machine alone, what is the way to increase my sales? For example, if you let a human being make a decision, he will bring a lot of ethical constraints in his thinking. Okay, can I do something or not? Okay, for example, what is the best way? If I keep giving say for example, some drug to little children, very easy, keep on selling. It's a valid way of making money, no? Money-wise. But is it ethically correct? Human alone can think like that. Machine doesn't have that feeling. So if you give the objective function to the machine as make highest profit, it will get into maybe all these kind of drug selling, all these kind of approaches will come naturally by machine. So it continues to feed that. So it has no moral bearing on its own.
It is not originally creative.
It is not originally creative. It's creative to the extent of the information that has been fed into it. If left-leaning people have fed out, if only the information is fed by left-leaning people, today you can clearly see that in ChatGPT, many cases. You go and say divine face, simply say divine
Yeah,
face.
it's
It
just
generally comes up with Christianity related divine emblems. Why? Because that is the nature of the data that has gone in. That's all it is.
So for like YouTube, if we say, if I search something, then it will start showing relevant shorts based on that. But Instagram, like even if I'm talking with my friend about, say, for example, a movie, I didn't even search the movie on Instagram. It will start showing.
How is that happening?
Your phone is constantly listening to you.
But say the app is closed now.
When you go into app building, you'll understand. Even when your app is killed, there are background services that you can still invoke, which feed the relevant information to your app. For example, if you have a financial app where you need to push notifications and your app is not functioning, either in the foreground or in the background, you can push. That's how your notifications can come. So there are a lot of services, and those services you cannot simply hook to those services. But a lot of these, as an example, to read your machine details, there's something called the IMEI number of your mobile, right? So apps cannot simply read IMEI number. But if you are a telecom operator or if you are creating a telephony app, you can request for it, and upon review, the Google Play Store people or iStore people, they can approve your app. There are millions of apps. So there are all these provisions. So it depends upon what kind of services you're using.
So, but then will that not be dangerous?
That is what is called the danger of this social media and the mobile is. So do not simply trust whatever you read here. Do not read, do not trust this. It can feed what you are think you are. It thinks who you are, and therefore it feeds you that information. So it's very easy to entice you or to trigger your emotions. For example, you show a woman of a particular religion being, let's say, maybe molested. Feed that, and more, people of that religion will start thinking, oh, that is happening. It's very easy to bring such things. And with AI generating videos and audio and seeing it becomes even more difficult. They have all worked on ChatGPT where they can generate the videos. Then very soon you'll be unable to detect whether it's a made up video or a real video. So how will we detect? Yeah. These are all the problems with this technology. So that's why we have to be extra careful in what we allow to go to our children. And that's where Dhavalji always constantly repeats. We need to let the children know that this is not something that they can simply blindly trust. So we need to verify it. We need to have children also somehow brought into this. But we cannot bring them into, oh, I don't know whether what you're being taught is correct or not. So we need to still somehow bring that capability to children, our children who are going to be using these platforms.
We have to sit with them and verify the answers.
No, he's talking about our content, our educational content. How do you ensure that the educational content is really up to par? Today we have taken a simplistic decision, which is our teachers will validate. But how do we ensure that our children also become part of it? They don't necessarily treat this as just like, for example, in the book, if the book says, if the textbook says acceleration, G, the constant G is 12.7, will you accept? But how do you know 9.8 is correct? On what basis are you saying 9.8 is correct?
That's we learned in school and.
No, what is the basis? What is the pramana? How do you know?
We learned it from our teachers, no?
No, the teacher said with sense of authority 9.8. But did you ever question the teacher's authority? See, that is the boundary of your knowledge. 9.8 must be correct. You simply now mugged it up. Is it really correct? Is it really correct? None of us have questioned it. So that is the critical thinking that we need to trigger in our children. That knowledge is not necessary to be taken as a gospel.
I'm totally good.
What?
With the 9.8 is.
No, you need to trigger. How can I arrive at whether 9.8 can be correct or not? I need to trigger the critical thinking. That critical thinking is what we need to really bring in our children. Not mug up at 9.8 is the acceleration due to gravity.
There's so many things you might have done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Experiment to derive G. And each one just to get 9.6 somebody, 9.2 somebody.
So this is what we need to now bring here. Not simply information. We have to trigger critical thinking. We have to enable them to question whether whatever they're seeing in the speech made is correct. Our teachers may have done a mistake.
How do they question that? To whom?
We need to figure out ways by which we bring that. So we need to, that's why, Facebook and such companies, they run what's called as a bug bounty. What bug bounty is, in your application, there may be a bug. If you find that bug, you'll be rewarded. Bug bounty. So if you think about it a little more, what is Facebook essentially doing is, they're releasing software to a certain extent. They also know that it is impossible to catch all bugs.
We are the QS.
And they're telling you, if you catch it, I'm going to reward you. It now becomes a feature of the product. Bug bounty.
They are doing crowd testing.
Huh?
Crowd testing. The crowd is testing.
So such technique. So our solution now is not completely only software engineering. There is a social engineering aspect that we need to embed into our solution. How, where, and in what way we need to think a little more deeply. So, when you are doing the ChatGPT for the teachers or any of the solutions here, don't think that, okay, whatever the ChatGPT uses is the final answer. How do I ensure that a reliable solution goes to my students? Reliability means what? That, okay, so whatever information that is coming through my apps, am I standing guarantee? Meaning, are we standing guarantee that information that is coming to you is 100% accurate? No. So how do I trigger that thinking in the children? Is where we enable them to become part of the solution rather than, oh, you have given me a textbook that is incorrect. So now are we clear why we are doing the 5-step? Yes. And again, please don't think that this is the right thing. This is one of the way by which we have done this, and now each one can participate. Yeah? So this is the work that our Anisha and Kushi are going to be doing now to come up with this 5-step API. And the idea is to create the first cut agent made. So eventually we should be able to add Gemini, test it. Okay, add OpenAI, test it. Right? So in 5th step, it doesn't matter which LLM you're calling. You can call Gemini, you can call OpenAI. So all that, the variations we should be able to run.
You can call it DeepSeek or anything.
Yeah. But this framework is what we are now trying to build first. Very good.
Why you took the flight 15 minutes ago?
Okay, it's
Yeah.
midway. In networking, there is a classical and wonderful concept called as request for comments, RFC. What is RFC? Request for comments. What is it? So what do you understand by that RFC, request for comments?
You ask people to check it and give the feedback.
Give critical feedback. So this is an RFC. So all of us are together going to strengthen this.
FC came before internet came. All the standards were decided by some experts in IT. They used to sit and do the experts standard specifications and write some books, read a white book, and say these are the way telecom networks work. And then this internet thing came, IATF was I don't know what the first the RFC is in IATF or the Internet Association or whatever. I forgot IATF was. That what they wrote, they said we develop open comments, open specifications. So everybody will write an RFC. RFC is nothing but basic specification and then put it on the internet. Everybody will read it.
Jai Ho!
I got some food. Language same.
No, he had to midway pick up some food.
Okay.
That's why we are meeting.
I had to do some home seva today in order to be eligible for this supplement.
So all specifications are finally seen by all users. They understand the specification, they comment on it, and when the comments are taken and involved, then only it is promoted. From RFC it will become a standard. So that was RFC was.
So that is a prime idea why we discuss whatever we discuss here. So the reason is, all of us together only can make the system strong. Together, not any one of us. Right? That's why we discuss all these topics together here commonly.
The advantage is real users keep the specs. Otherwise, some expert puts a spec, it is not useful for the real user. So that was a fantastic step. IATF.
Yeah.
IATF, I think. It was, I don't know what the extraction, but that was the internet specs organization. I don't think now anybody really goes to RFCs other than.
No, networking protocols are still, are RFC based on it.
RFC.
And the thinking is now translated into, for example, for many of the common protocols, there's a RFC equivalent process that
RFC, yeah. The thing was evolving so fast, people used to look at an RFC, once it is gaining something, they used to develop. So, the original content was from RFC, they has to go to a standard, that was whisk. The people know already, okay, everybody is commenting on this, everybody is doing this. So RFC became the standard. RFC was not originally standard.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be only open for standard.
Yeah. All right. So far, the LLM team is going to be now working on. You want to bring that up, Anisha?
Just put your.
Can you unpin this? So this is about the first cut.
Oh wow!
Namaste.
Hi, Sakshi.
HVC, highly valued customer.
Highly valued.
They are my actual stress testers.
Yeah. So this is our first cut agent made. So agent made, as we discussed last week, essentially is a playground to test out various LLM and so on and so forth, right? So I'm proposing that we do it as a set of these 5 APIs to begin with. It's a API first approach, and then we will bring a UI layer. And the 5 APIs is what the first task for them to design and develop. You want to just quickly run through them so that Dhavalji can comment.
The first API that we are going to do is to upload any PDF or
In a
knowledge
PDF,
base.
upload any
Knowledge base. And the second API is chunking the PDF and add into the vector database. Should I explain it or?
No, I understand.
Ah,
Okay.
okay. Third API is create phase index for the chunks. The fourth API is receive query and return the top K matches.
What is that one? Then you have built that.
The fourth API. Yeah. Now after indexing takes place, whenever the user asks for the query, there will be the indexing happens, right? So there will be top K matches according to the query. So whatever the query is asked, based on that, there will be a search, and there will be top K match that will be returning. Yeah, so that's the fourth.
So phase, as you may know, is a semantic search library. And what it does is, let's assume, simple sentence-based semantic search. Is sentence one semantically closer to sentence two? That is a search that you're running. Top K match is nothing but when a user sentence comes in, what are the closest sentences to this sentence? What is the distance of this to this? It has a way of computing that distance and a way of bringing those. That is what is called as generally in semantic search top K match. Top K is K is any number. Top 3, top 4, top 5. It depends upon your use case. So that is what the fourth way is. To retrieve the top K. So
that we come. Okay.
So you have a chunk. Okay, so for example, you have a big knowledge base. So this is where, imagine, now there are many ways of slicing and dicing this. So now 6th grade science is our represented as let's say one big PDF. Okay, that big PDF is a 500-page PDF. Now that your chunk that you put into your database. Now in that, today I'm learning gravity. So now in that, which are the relevant chunks that I need to pick? Is the top K approach. It may be in chapter 1, it may be in chapter 7 also, there may be a reference. So by doing that, I get all possible closest matches. So that I can then go to my next step.
Because isn't this something that an LLM is already supposed to do, and some sort of set is already supposed to do rather than we doing it?
Good question. So now let's say if you don't have this chunking, okay, then what is the approach you will follow with LLM? You will dump the whole PDF to LLM as context, and you will expect it to churn it, right? What is that has happened because of this? Number one, your processing time has increased because Nick has now churned through this entire big context all the time. Number two, every time you are feeding that whole to universe of tokens, so your cost is also increasing. Number three, it has now a greater scope of hallucination because you're giving every time the whole universe of content rather than saying, okay, hey, generate your response only within this smaller boundary. So to avoid these three problems, if you give a like your Bolt prompt, why are you giving the step-by-step instruction to Bolt? Because it is now able to generate within that boundary, right? You're giving the very defined boundary. So the defined boundary.
But I understand that, but I'm wondering, is this not already available as a service by some other thing already? Because this would have been a problem that all people face all the time, right?
When you are building the RAG pipeline, these are the steps involved in any RAG pipeline. So that's what the initial search was. They couldn't locate any open source RAG pipeline which can be simply taken.
Exactly. That's what my point is. Since this is a problem almost everybody is trying to solve.
Yeah.
Isn't there already some sort of setup available which we can use where we have to just plug in our knowledge base?
Correct.
And we are directly interacting with the others.
So nothing has come up so far. But again, I want them to gain a little bit more hands-on. in doing this, then the way they search will also get refined. Yes.
The fifth API is LLM call and retrieving the answers. So we will be having a set of LLMs. And whichever LLM is required, we can plug in, and accordingly we can retrieve the answers.
So I would suggest two more things down the line, probably if not now. One is get a list of conversations that so far has happened through the fifth API.
Yeah, so can you write down 6th API? And you can. And you can call it as future date. Not for this iteration, next iteration.
Now is Malika, and she is heading one large groups in Detroit, Tennessee. She visited India. Now she is figuring out how her large team can be reduced with the AI technology. I said, start is the small team itself, rather than the large team. She has a good understanding of AI domain. He's our team. Dawal was working in Amazon USA. Now he's handling over UA team.
Met everybody else. I didn't see you and.
Yeah, so 6th API is get list of conversations.
And be able to provide feedback on.
Yeah,
It's a good answer or whatever.
yeah.
And the seventh one is in this.
Yeah.
Where?
Get list of conversations
Right.
with feedback.
Seventh API is, it's actually the fifth API, but you should be able to say back that this is not right. This answer is not right. And instead, it should be this kind of answer, which should go back and update the knowledge base of the system.
So it is not just the, okay, yeah. So call it as correction, human in the loop correction. 7th API, human in the loop correction. So a human is shown the answer. Human knows it is a correct answer or a wrong answer. Human also knows what is the correct answer, and human is giving the correct answer, and it is somewhere going and getting updated in our. Very simple, the human has prompted the question, and the human is shown the answer, and the human doesn't like that answer. Human will say, here is the correct answer. So that is what the 7th API. That is the feedback. No, yes. So human feedback. And of course, all of this will be converted into some kind of UI, right? So there it will be easier.
Exactly, I'm thinking of that.
Yeah.
So human feedback to update the knowledge.
So whole thing will become a RAG pipeline.
So this entire thing, we can think of it as a RAG pipeline. Eventually, we will continue to evolve that into other ways of improvising. But yeah, we can think of that way.
No. This is essentially dot forms.
Yeah, exactly. So API,
You're repeating dot form.
Huh?
You're repeating dot form. You're
Yeah.
repeating agent.
Yes.
Is it generic agent? Is
This-
it generic agent or specific agent?
no, this is first of all a framework to bring our agents to train. So this is our agent made.
This is agent made. Agent training.
Agent training ground.
Gita ji will be trained in this.
Gita ji, Krishna ji, Yaksha ji.
So all our divine characters are coming in the air.
So that's a mind tickle actually.
So they wanted, should we do it now or after lunch? Dhavalji said,
We can do. How much time it take? You have set up ready?
maybe
Yeah,
maybe some 10 minutes.
See what you have done.
Let's do it.
What you have, I'll tell you the principle.
So when you do, yeah.
You can so our concept is schools without teachers. Okay, the tutor will be there. Now we cannot give children that child because it's ethical and all those things. What we are doing is using prompts, prompting. We are creating lessons which gets curated by the teachers. We are not putting the AI directly double on the children. Expert teachers will curate it. The curated content will go to the children through a database. Then another AI agent will pick up, and based on the evaluate the children's progress and teach. It give quizzes. It create a curiosity. Okay, and it evaluate progress and fine tune the lessons to the child. So child is not exposed to AI directly as a curated AI. So the child that part which a child does is called
interact with an AI agent that is a
सर आवाज नहीं आ रही, नॉट ऑडियोबल। Sir, I am not audible.
Karni ji, we are now breaking for lunch.
सर मेरा पूरा सेशन ही निकल गया, किसी ने म्यूट कर दिया था। मैंने आपको मैसेज भी किया है सर।
ब्रह्मैव तेन गन्तव्यं ब्रह्म कर्म समाधिना अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितं प्राणापान समायुक्तो पचाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् अन्नपूर्णे तथा पूर्णे शंकर प्राणवल्लभे ज्ञान वैराग्य सिद्ध्यर्थं भिक्षां देहि च पार्वती